Hi guys, Natalie here. I hope you are doing well. So I wanted to share with you guys an experiment. I've been contemplating about how to go about doing this for probably like weeks and weeks now. For the past couple of years, I have been really keen to start beekeeping, and I've just been studying and researching and studying and researching everything to do with exactly that, beekeeping. Um, my biggest, I think, reason why I haven't just gone on and started it is firstly the costs involved. It's not um, necessarily a cheap hobby to start. You do need a couple of thousand to start. Here in South Africa, I mean, just to get your gear and your hive and everything, you're looking anywhere at starting 3 to 5,000 rand, which for the everyday person um, isn't always an amount of money that's accessible. So my goal has been, okay, I want to do beekeeping, I want to keep bees, but is it not a way that like anyone can do it? It should be one of those things that's accessible to everyone, should they want to do it. And how would you go about starting? So first of all, YouTube. YouTube would be your first starting point. Go and watch the phenomenal amount of videos that are there that'll teach you everything to do with beekeeping, from how to look for a queen, how to, get a hive, things like that. So go look on YouTube and just watch as much as you possibly can and educate yourself. If there's a local beekeeper or apiary around you, you can maybe reach out and chat to them. I personally now know two really good beekeepers in my area, and every time I see them, I just, you know, go with all the questions that I possibly can at them, and they've been really quite nice and friendly and phenomenal and helping me and assisting me and giving me loads of advice and information. So shout out to them, thank you so much. So the only thing is, like, then you get the equipment. Obviously we're in South Africa, so our honeybees are African honeybees or Africanized honeybees, so they're a little bit more vibrant than in other places of the world. So things like beekeeping equipment is quite, veils and what have you is quite important. And as I have been advised, double up on everything, double up on clothing, double up on your socks, everything. Wear double layers when you're dealing with bees here, and that's going to be your best way going forward. So I will be working on my outfit, which will be really random looking. I'm going to be sharing that with you probably in an upcoming video. Thank goodness I used to be a bridal dressmaker, so I have loads of tulle and knitting just sitting around, like literally meters and meters of the stuff. I'm going to be transforming that into a kind of beekeeping outfit for myself, which I will be sharing. But let's get back to how to start. So I have been lucky enough that we've in an area where there's a lot of bees. Naturally, we're in a very forested area, and there are a lot of bees naturally, and they have swarmed, and we've had to have bees removed from buildings, and as a result I've had some honeycomb harvested from that, which has given me a starting point, which I'll mention in a bit. But then the whole thing is like, how do you take that and get a uh, beehive and stuff like that? So I didn't want to buy a wooden beehive. The reason for that being that we do live in a subtropical climate. So it is humid here a lot, and it rains a lot. And we've experienced, we have wood buildings and wooden walkways and things like that around us, and the wood just doesn't last. It rots, it molds, even if it's treated, it just does not last. So if I was to have a wooden beehive, the mold and the decay and the bugs, and we have a lot of termites as well, a phenomenal amount of termites in the area. How would that actually impact the wood, even though it's treated? I mean, I've seen on our wooden buildings and our walkways, even though it's treated, it doesn't always, eventually it gets to a point where it fails. And the mold or the wood rot or something happens, and then you have to constantly maintain it. Okay, so most hives naturally, well, not naturally, most hives that you get or you purchase are wood, and there's no way you can avoid that. They're also expensive. They're quite expensive. You're looking at a couple of thousand to get your brood box, your supers, your frames. If you want wax in those frames, it's even more. You got your bottom board, your top board, your lid, your queen excluder, and it all adds up. And obviously, if your hive grows, you would need a second brood box, and if you want more honey, you'd need another super, so on. So all of these things do add up at the end of the day, and it's not cheap to get started. So for the past few months and months and months, I'm like, how can I get around this? I mean, this has got to be something that's got to be affordable for absolutely everyone. I mean, bees, it's bees. We all want to keep bees. We want to look after bees. Well, most of us homesteading folk want to do it. Not only is it good for our gardens and our veggies, but obviously it's good in general for the environment and biodiversity and all of that. So how do we go about doing that? But that it's actually cost effective or doesn't cost us anything. Then last week I came across a video of this gentleman in Europe. I'll actually share it in the description below. And he started creating beehives out of 5-liter bottles, like 5-liter water bottles, big water bottles, and proving that bees will move into these plastic water bottles that most of us just literally throw away. And not only that, but he's able to use them to make honey, so he can create a brood chamber and then a honey chamber, and he created his own little queen excluders and everything, and it was just a phenomenal setup. He's still experimenting with it. He hasn't quite shared his plans of how he did it, but you can still get an idea of what he's getting at with that. I'm like, wow. And it just kind of opened my thinking, going, we have 5-liter water bottles everywhere. I mean, you can just, they're everywhere. I could probably go into my house and probably find at least 5 to 10 of them there in my own home, because we do live in an area that there is a water shortage. So often people just go out and buy water, and when you buy water in bulk, you're buying 5-liter bottles of water. So we have a lot. We literally have a lot of them around here. And then I was like, okay, how do I go about insulating them and things like that? So that's the whole next level of how to do it. And I've just been thinking so much on it, like, how would I go about and using what I have at home, then make a beehive. And I was just sitting in my kitchen and I realized I have a lot of buckets, like food grade buckets. I used to have a restaurant, and I used to also propagate mushrooms. So I have a lot of these really big food grade buckets, literally just piles of them sitting in my kitchen. Because let's face it, I'm in my 40s, I'm an adult woman, and a good bucket is a good bucket. So why would you want to throw out a good bucket, right? And now I know why. And I thought, let me put a couple of these buckets together and see if I can't use these plastic food grade buckets to create a beehive. So I just been thinking about it for a couple of days, and I just put together a rough idea of a custom-made experimental beehive. So let me just show you how this is looking, and then we'll go there and I'll keep you updated on how it goes from here on. So there we go. So this is a clear bucket, and I put the clear bucket at the bottom because I want to be able to see, to start, what exactly is happening and what is going on. And this is an old drawer set that I actually had, and the top wood was melamine, and it rotted because we're at the coast and the ocean, and it doesn't do well. So I just chopped that off and I put these big stabilizing pieces of wood on. That will come into play later on when I actually put this hive where it's going to finally be. At the moment, it's at a point where I just want to catch a swarm. So it's where the bees have been the most active, and that's where I've moved it to in my garden. So I've used a clear food grade bucket here at the bottom. And as you can see in there, I actually have a chopstick. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the previous hive we had removed. I had kept some of the honeycomb because I'm going to use a system called bait and wait. So this is my bait, and I've put it inside the bucket, and I'm going to wait for it to attract some of the bees in my area, and hopefully it works. And then we live in an area that there's high rainfall, so I had to make sure that the bees were protected. So this is an old lid that I cut and installed, covering the opening that I made here at the bottom, so the bees can land here and go inside this opening there. I know it looks a bit rough, sorry, I did all the wood drill bit, but there it is. The bees can get in there if they wanted to, and this will protect them from any rain that comes. And then what I did here, so you can see I've got air vents at the back and here, so that at the bottom, so it'll allow them to be able to move the air through nicely. So you can see there at the back there's some air vents, and then I've attached this top piece. So first of all, you will see here I made a whole bunch of holes here. So I used a 4mm drill bit, wood drill bit, and these will make holes just big enough for worker bees to fit through, but it should be just small enough for a queen bee to fit through, so it should create a natural queen excluder. So this is big enough here for the queen to move in at the bottom here, and hopefully they will come and start building their brood. So this is what I'm aiming for to have as the brood box here at the bottom, and then this will be my first super on top. And just to encourage them a little bit and to give them a starting point, I did include some honeycomb and a chopstick in there for them to be able to have a starting point. So yeah, this is my first experiment. It looks a little rough, so I did attach this bucket to this wood frame, but when I put my weight on top to keep the lids on, it all kind of bent a little bit. So these pieces of wood are just to keep the bucket from moving and keeping it nice and supported. It looks a little bit rough, but honestly this is an experiment. If it works, I'm happy to later on neaten it up and see how it goes. But yes, this should work. It should attract a swarm. So a swarm in the area happen, and hopefully they move in. And then all I got to do now is find a way to keep them insulated when there's a bit of bad weather. So I obviously live in a high wind area. We do have some very bad wind. Is one of the wonderful joys of living near the ocean, and if you want that ocean view, you have to deal with the wonderful wind that comes with that, including the gale force winds, which we do have, and we're actually going into windy season where we're going to be experiencing those gale force winds on a regular basis. So much so that I'm a Libra, I'm a wind element, I love wind. But usually every year when it gets to my birthday time, I'm full. I have had enough. I really have had, because by the time it gets to that point, it's up to 2 months of solid wind that have been blasting us here, because it is a windy season. It usually dies off within the month after that, but yeah, we get up to 3 months of a lot of wind, and I want to make sure that this whole hive is as stable as possible, which brings me to what I've done here. So I've just added a few extra pieces of wood. As you can see, I've used some concrete blocks just to secure it, and these pieces of wood are going to allow me, when I move it to its final destination, which is a concrete block, I can actually bolt these down, and this whole contraption should be extremely windproof. It can be blasted by gale force wind. At the same time, even though this can be blasted by gale force winds, I have picked a section of my garden to put it when it has finally got a hive, where it is as protected as possible. It has a tree line, it has walls, and the wind isn't as hectic, and won't affect the hive as much. So that is my goal, to be able to make it as windproof as possible and as protected as possible, because I love the bees and I want them to stick around for a while. So this is just the beginning of my um, experiment, so cross fingers that it all works, and I will keep you updated in the coming months to show you whether or not it does work. Maybe nothing happens and nobody moves in, or maybe it's a beautiful swarm and we just go from strength to strength. So I will keep you updated. If you have any questions or comments in the comment section below, let me know, and I will answer them as best to my ability as possible. Thank you.